Welcome to the SuperStar Communicator podcast of your hosts, Nick Simon and Susan Heaton-Wright. We're here to create intrigue and interest about spoken communication to empower you to speak and communicate with confidence, clarity, and credibility in all of your business conversations. We interview expert guests from all over the world. Listen twice a month to be inspired to be a superstar communicator.
Hello, everybody. This is Nick and Susan from SuperStar Communicator. We obviously work remotely. We are not in the same studios. And I know from my perspective, I work with my suppliers, of course, Nick's one of them, remotely. So we are not together all the time. And Nick, you work for other companies as well. What is your perspective on that?
Yeah, it's very useful to be able to essentially work remote with people. I work with an Irish podcaster who sends me their stuff, and I'm able to instantly receive it and edit it, and then send it on. And it's convenient in that way, but also there's a kind of I've never met them in real life before, so there's that kind of different dynamic you get than with a boss that might work in the same building as you.
So one of the challenges in 2024, and it was there in 2023 as well, was that business leaders were definitely wanting to have more people back in the office, at least for 2 or 3 days, but particularly your age group are very keen to work remotely or have more flexibility in your work patterns. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think the kind of commute problem that a lot of jobs have, being that a significant amount of time out of their day is taken from commuting from their home to the office, and there are solutions for that, such as getting renting a place or buying a place in closer to the work, but that can be incredibly expensive, and instead you can opt out to get a job that's remote, and that kind of makes it less difficult to less stressful because you're not having to travel. But there's also cases where I read an article about this man in America moved to Georgia in Eastern Europe, where the prices are incredibly low, and he was able to work completely remotely. Although in Georgia they don't speak a lot of English, so you'd have to learn their language. So there still is that kind of barrier, but working remote opens up a lot of opportunities to be able to work without having to pay high prices.
But there is the problem, and for leaders, this is a challenge, really. How do you monitor what people are doing at work? Are they actually doing their work, or are they watching films on Netflix? How can you check that people are doing the work?
Yeah, it's quite difficult. I can't really think of a solution other than setting up remote or giving company laptops to the employees, and in that way you can access software remotely, but at the same time you can also have a separate device to watch that kind of thing. And in a way, working from home can be more distracting because there's less. You might be working in your bedroom or something like that. It's not as good in terms of being able to focus on work.
But do you think working in an office where there are other people around you, you can be distracted by a conversation? You know, it's the final of the traitors today. there being massive conversations about who's going to win the money, which remotely you wouldn't have.
Yeah, in a way, that's sort of up to managers, I guess. That's sort of a managerial problem in itself. I would say, personally, I work remotely, and I would say that there is a benefit to going to an office and having those kind of loose relationships with other co-workers, because it's sort of a mutual interest and that kind of thing. So I'd say there's plus sides and positives and negatives to working at home versus in the office.
With regards working remotely, uh, it can be quite isolating at times. What sort of tips do you have for making sure that you don't feel isolated?
Yeah, it's quite difficult, especially if you live in an isolated place and you're working isolated. There's not much reason to go out. I would say the best way is to simply move. Well, I say simply, but move to a lively place if you're able to. But also have plenty of friends online that you can meet, and keep an active lifestyle so that you're not always working and staying at home. So
Now, what about though, if you're in an office and you've got a question, you pop round to that person's desk or their office within the organization, and that's how we all learn from each other, or perhaps having the opportunity to discuss a particular challenge. How does that work remotely?
yeah, one of my friends is a programmer he lives in Scotland, but I think the company he works for is either based in Czech Republic, or
Oh,
that
right.
they have strong leads in Czech Republic, and he essentially works completely online. So in that way, you can, with the internet, it is easy to connect to people, and especially tech is based around the internet and having servers. So I would say that really it is quite easy to find solutions to those kind of problems. And if you can't find them, part of depending on what job you're doing, part of that is based on experience, but also being able to call up co-workers and seeing what they think.
And how would you reassure? I know that the type of work you do, you have managers, you have leaders who you report to. How do you reassure them that you're getting the work done? How are you communicating that?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one. For I do video editing, and that's is quite straightforward in that way, that you receive a video to edit on an online spreadsheet. You finish it and then post it. And I guess it's in terms of communication, it's quite simple to simply just communicate and give an ETA to when you'll post it. So I guess there's an experience part of that, of being able to know how long it takes you to do that kind of video.
Do you think, because we discussed a little bit about how leaders could monitor work, do you think that they should think of jobs or work being a series of small tasks or small projects so that they can see when they are completed?
Yeah, I think that sort of goes. It can easily go quite into micromanagerial kind of thing, where it might be over the top, trying to control every aspect. I think there's a balance between having those steps, but also um, allowing your employees to do the work and trusting them to do the work. And I guess from a remote point of view, it's quite a bit more difficult to do that. But I guess remote working is relatively new as a thing, so there'll probably be a solution to that soon.
Yes, I mean, I know that there are these spy software that can analyze how often you move your mouse and you're using the keyboard. Um, and yeah, I mean, that could be a solution. But personally, as a leader, I would feel very uncomfortable about micromanaging in that way. I just wonder whether it would be better, perhaps every half day, to routinely send an email to the manager or the leader saying, this is what I've done so far, or to have some sort of I don't know, project management package, even something as simple as Slack, to let people know what you've done that morning or that afternoon. So you're justifying what you've done.
And also, I think there could be a software similar to Microsoft's Teams, or if you're depending on what work you're doing. If you're doing accounting, it could be a special remote work Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, that kind of thing, that monitors and gives a kind of history of entries, something like that, that could be created in the future to do that kind of work. But I guess, yeah, it's very difficult to keep tabs on what people do.
So what would your 3 top tips be as a remote worker to somebody like me, leader? You know, obviously we work together, but if I were your boss, what 3 top tips would you say to make sure you reassure me that you're getting the work done?
Yeah, communication is key, I think. So, say if you sent a client something, the client should make sure that you're aware that they've received it and are beginning on it. So, there are online software that kind of do this remote um, work kind of thing. So that I use Asana and also Monday.com.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing. The second thing would
So
be,
just 1 second, for those people who might know what Asana or Monday.com are, could you explain what they are?
yeah, they're online database and scheduling tools that are used, and you essentially are given tasks. You have a login given to you, and you essentially, once they're finished, you make sure um, on the software that you say that the task is finished. And
Okay.
yeah, so I think the second thing would be for to set up a schedule, a deadline, and making sure that, for instance, me as a video editor, I would make sure that you are aware of how long the type of video would take to edit.
So
So
you're managing the expectation of the
yeah,
client.
so it probably work both ways. And
Yes.
if you're on a tight schedule and you wanted a video done quickly, you'd have to make sure that that was clear. And then I guess the third thing would be there's communication, there's scheduling. So I suppose manage expectations in general. Don't be too sure. I guess if you're creating new work relations, it's quite difficult to manage expectations with someone who's new and you're not aware of how long they take. But in the long run, having trusted people to do that work without having to micromanage them, that's the key to keeping a healthy kind of work balance.
Yeah, it's working together. It's working on what's going to work best for both of you.
Yeah.
It might be that the manager or the client needs to be given some suggestions. I've used Monday.com in the past, and this, shall we try this as a communications um, piece?
Yeah. And also, I think if you're working remotely and you've never met your boss before, it might be nice to actually go and meet them, because that's it's a nice kind of get together, and you can have a nice coffee. And I did a 6-month placement working on a database, and I'd only ever met my boss once, but I got to show him around the local city nearby, and it was quite nice meeting him in real life.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, I mean, I know that one of your clients is based in Ireland. Perhaps when they are in London, you could arrange to meet them.
Yeah, exactly.
What a great idea. So, what we've been talking about really is one of the essentials of being a superstar communicator, and it's thinking about the ways that we can build up trust and mutual respect, and how we work together through using communication. If anybody else has got any ideas, please put them in the post below, because it's very interesting to see and to get tips from other people, because remote working is here to stay. Is there anything you'd like to add before we finish, Nick?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you very much for watching, everybody. And thank you very much for your input, Nick, because, you know, you're seeing things from another perspective, and that's what makes these conversations so useful. So until next time, thank you very much for watching. Remember that we can help you. Well, Nick can help you with your video production, editing, and also podcast editing. And SuperStar Communicator, we can assist in communication skills, whether you're wanting us to facilitate workshops, masterclasses, individual coaching, or speaking. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.
Thank you for listening. You have been listening to the Superstar Communicator podcast with your hosts, Nick Simon and Susan Heaton-Wright. If you like what we do, why not buy us a coffee on buyusacoffee.com/superstarcoms and subscribe to hear all our podcasts.